After watching the Orioles get swept by the Blue Jays this weekend, the one nice thing I'll say about this Toronto team is they look exactly like the 2023 Orioles, and I hope they suffer the same fate in the postseason.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Monday, September 15th, 2025, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb. And coming up on today's episode, we are going to recap the Orioles getting swept by the Toronto Blue Jays over the weekend. Couple of games they certainly could have won on Friday and Saturday. Not the case on Sunday in the blowout loss of the Orioles after some really good momentum. Started September 8-1, lose all three north of the border. I'll get you what went right, what went wrong, and a shout out to someone from all three games. We'll talk about the big league debut of Carson Ragsdale and how that didn't go too well on Sunday. We'll discuss Sean Dubin hitting the injured list, Trevor Rogers leaving early with an injury that doesn't seem to be so serious, and a nice little stretch here from Jackson Holliday and Coby Mayo. But that's all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast, which is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So download the FanDuel app today. So the O's drop all three in Toronto this weekend, and finally with the blowout loss on Sunday, after they were 8-1 in September, had won three consecutive series to start the month, the Orioles now sit at 69-80 on the year. It's crazy we're this deep into the season. There are only 13 games remaining for the Orioles in 2025, and for them to finish with a winning record, they would have to go a perfect 13-0. Any one more loss secures at least 500. Any two more losses secures a losing season here for the O's this year. But let's begin with Friday night. Final score from the opener in this series is the Toronto Blue Jays 6 and the Orioles 1 from Friday. Let's begin with what went right from Friday night. Well, Trevor Rogers once again did not allow an earned run. Final line from Rogers in this one: 5 innings, allowing 1 unearned run on 3 hits with 6 strikeouts to 4 walks on 79 pitches. The left-hander drops his ERA to 1.43 on the season, continuing this just miraculous stretch. And these numbers are entering play on Saturday, but I believe they are still valid here up through Monday. The 1.43 ERA for Trevor Rogers is the lowest ERA in the majors this year among pitchers who have thrown at least 60 innings. Now, Trevor Rogers, even though he did miss a good chunk of time with injury at the beginning of the year and then was in AAA, he's now thrown 16 starts and 102/3 innings this season. That is well over 60 innings. You might be wondering, Connor, why are you setting it at 60 innings? Well, at this point in the season in mid-September, a lot of the best and most used healthy relievers out there have thrown about 60 innings this season. So what that means is a 60-inning minimum also includes relievers. And if you have a starting pitcher, because remember, reliever ERAs are just across the board going to be lower than starter ERAs. You're only pitching in those 1 to 2 inning stints. You're letting it all out. You are kind of able to go out there 3 batters at a time instead of have to go through an order multiple times. Reliever ERA is just lower. That's just how the game is played now. And especially the best relievers have much lower ERAs than the best starting pitchers. That's how crazy this is, that he's got the lowest ERA of anyone who's thrown 60 innings. And even if you drop the minimum as low as 40 innings this season, if you go down to 40 innings this season, you're basically encompassing every single at least solid reliever who hasn't had some sort of major-ish injury on the season. Like most relievers who have been part of teams' bullpens for most of the year and have been counted on for most of the year, they've thrown at least 40 innings to this point. Only Aroldis Chapman in his incredible season with his 1.14 ERA has a lower ERA in that stretch. So now you're basically including all of the healthy relievers, and Trevor Rogers, only one of them has a lower ERA on the season. He's a starter who's made 16 starts. And honestly, even more impressive for Rogers, he really didn't look good on Friday night. We've said this maybe for 2 out of Rogers' last 4 starts or so, where it's like, he didn't look great out there compared to his peak this season. And he's still just stacking zeros when he goes out there. I mean, still didn't allow an earned run. His 4 walks, that was a season high. That was pretty concerning. He walked 3 batters alone in the 3rd inning, but guess what? He's not allowing hits. So he walked the bases loaded and still got out of the jam to put up a 0 in the 3rd on Friday night. 3 walks in an inning. He'd only walked a total of 3 guys in a game a couple of times. Now he walks 3 in an inning. That was super odd to see. His velo was down about a mile an hour across the board on all of his offerings. You don't love to see that. And then I think it was around the 4th inning, I saw him limping around the mound a little bit, just ever so slightly. And then he comes out of the game and comes out, at 79 pitches. It's 5 innings of 1 unearned run. It's a 1-1 game when he leaves. And when he came out, the Orioles and, the broadcast, the beat writers didn't immediately report that there was something wrong with Rogers. But even then I was like, the Orioles are out of it. They're not exactly trying to win every game. He's pitched incredibly well for them. He has thrown 79 pitches, which most guys have at least another inning in them, but it's not like it was 60 pitches. It was just about 80. And the command was not there. That was probably the worst command that Rogers has had maybe all year, of course, with walking a season high 4 batters. So you add all that together and you're like, it wouldn't be the craziest move, even if he was healthy, to just pull him at that point at 5 innings. But it turns out it was injury related. Rogers left the game with what the Orioles called left toe discomfort. It turns out that Rogers has a blood blister under his left big toe that he's been dealing with for the past couple of weeks, but Rogers said it became much larger of an issue than it's been on Friday night, which impacted him. That is his left foot. So for a left-handed pitcher, that's the one he's pushing off the rubber with. And those big toe injuries, you see it with a lot of like NFL offensive linemen. They can be sneaky impactful for how important your toes are, especially your big toe. And if you're not feeling right when you push off the mound, that's going to throw off your command specifically. And so it is nice that A, we have a direct reason for why he walked a season high 4 batters. And B, Rogers said after the game, he doesn't expect to have to miss a start. And then Tony Mansolino said to the media on Sunday, kind of echoed the same thing. There is no expectation that Rogers misses a start. He should be ready and good to go to face the Yankees the next time up this weekend. But even with all that, it's 1 unearned run in 5 innings, and he lowers his ERA. What went wrong from Friday night? Well, the Orioles had a rough defensive night in this one. I've been mentioning an unearned run from Rogers because that's what it was. In the 5th inning, the only run that scored against Trevor Rogers was when Colton Cowser let a ball go right under his glove in right center field in the 5th inning. It was on a double from Vladdy Jr. If Cowser picks it up and throws it in, certainly the run does not score, as Davis Schneider was on first base with 2 outs, but the ball getting by him allowed Schneider to come around and score and tie the game at 1. Again, it would have been 2nd and 3rd, and Rogers did get the next hitter to ground out to end the inning. So theoretically, he would have been through those 5 scoreless innings. Cowser did make a really, really nice diving catch later in the game to try and make up for it. But then in the 6th inning, again, the errors hurt him. It was an infield single on a really tough play to third base to Emmanuel Rivera. He made a great pick, got up, and then made a bad throw over to first base. Wasn't the worst throw in the world, but it did get by first, and it was off the bat of IKF. And the big part of the error was it wasn't just an infield single. The throw got away, and it allowed IKF to get to second base, and then he ended up scoring on a Miles Straw double. Now, the official score scored that one an earned run because they determined that even if IKF were only on first base, he would have scored on the 2-out double. Probably he does have good speed. There was 2 outs, but you never know. And the infield, or the error, I should say, made it certain that that run would score. Then Emmanuel Rivera just wasn't quick enough to get to a grounder in the 7th that turned into an RBI single that made it 3-1 Blue Jays. On the 2-run double that kind of broke it open the 8th to make it 5-1, Ryan Mountcastle did not make a great play on a ball that skipped by him at first base. Now, some of this was on the Orioles bullpen, right? After Rogers left, the bullpen allowed 5 runs in 3 innings, and despite not perfect defense, all 5 of those runs were earned, 2 of them against Dietrich Enns, and then 3 of them against Sean Dubin. Those 2 guys kind of covered those final 3 innings, but neither pitched particularly well. And for the Orioles, I think you kind of get a pass, right? They've been the best bullpen in the majors in September coming into Friday. Now that's all gone because of what happened this weekend, but they had been pitching so well. It wasn't a great outing for Enns, and Dubin really didn't look good at all. They were trying to get him through that 8th inning. It was the first time he allowed runs as an Oriole. And then, as we'll get to in a bit, it turned out to be an injury after that outing as well. So something clearly was wrong with Sean Dubin at some point in that outing, and then obviously hoping the best for him. But the shout out for this Orioles loss goes to Jackson Holliday, because that guy just keeps on hitting. Had an RBI single in the third inning that opened the scoring off of Blue Jay starter Chris Bassett and put the Orioles up 1-0. Ended up being, of course, the only run they would score in that game. But he also drew a walk later in the game. He stole a base. And through Friday, his previous 13 games, Jackson Holliday hitting .375, 12 walks to only 8 strikeouts, 5 stolen base, 2 homers. Been a top 10 hitter in Major League Baseball by WRC Plus during that stretch. I keep talking about it. It's been a fine season for Jackson Holliday. Nothing amazing, nothing terrible, just kind of been fine for a 21-year-old, but we would love to see him finish the season strong. He is pretty much doing that exactly. He is finishing this season strong. Got on base twice on Friday. He had another single and a walk on Saturday. He went 1 for 3 with a single on Sunday. He just continues to hit. The numbers are raising a little bit. This can hopefully finish for the final 2 weeks and give Holliday some momentum, which should be hopefully that big breakout season in 2026. But it wasn't enough on Friday night. Orioles kind of falter late, losing 6-1. But Saturday, for most of the game, they looked like they were in position to win this one. They were 2 outs away from winning this game in the bottom of the 9th inning. And for everything good the bullpen's done in the first couple of weeks of September, it crumbled Friday. It crumbled even more on Saturday. I'll tell you how the Orioles blew that lead and lost on Saturday afternoon, coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel can be great because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, even jumping in as the live action unfolds. And it's quick, it's easy, it's the best way to add maybe a little more energy to your Sunday, even if the Ravens are sleepwalking through 3 quarters and then somehow still end up winning by 20-plus points. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. And this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I, we make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football back, Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. And Prize Picks just makes an NFL Sunday very fun to watch. I mean, you just pull up on things and take more or less. I'm generally taking more on Lamar Jackson. I'm generally taking more on Derrick Henry, but there are even things called some max discounts. Next Sunday, Patrick Mahomes, you can go more or less than 0.5 passing yards. I think you can feel pretty good about that one. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. It's at Prize Picks. It's good to be right. So after the Orioles dropped kind of a slog of a game on Friday night, they had a legitimate chance to win that game on Saturday. Went into the bottom of the 9th inning, leading 4-2 with how good the bullpen's pitched lately, and they gave it away. Final score from Saturday, the Blue Jays 5 and the Orioles 4, as Alejandro Kirk walks it off with a sac fly in the bottom of the 9th inning. Jays score 3 runs in the 9th to win the game and clinch the series. Let's start with what went right for the Orioles on Saturday. Well, Tomoyuki Sugano was kind of cruising along in this game. Remember his last start last Sunday, left in the 4th inning after taking a comebacker off his right foot, kind of limped off the mound, but the swelling, the injury didn't end up being as bad as he thought, ended up being fine, was able to make his next start here on Saturday. And then, of course, it happens again on the final out of the 1st inning. He takes a 113 mile per hour line drive off the leg from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Turns out to be just an absolutely incredible play by Samuel Basallo to get out from behind the plate, pick up that ball barehanded, and still throw out Guerrero for the final out of the first. But, Sugano limping around a little bit, comes to the dugout, gets a little treatment, and stays in the game. And other than the solo home run he allowed to Addison Barger in the 5th inning, he was kind of cruising. Only 4 hard hits, I should say, despite there was a good chunk of hard contact by Toronto hitters against him. But the big thing for Sugano, only allowed the 1 home run, and it came with no one on base, and he did not walk anyone. And that is the key here. When the Orioles brought Sugano over here to MLB, the big thing, his big calling card was, his stuff is not what it was 5, 6, 7 years ago, but he's just not going to walk guys. And it's been pretty much the case this year. It's a 5.5% walk rate. That's in the 91st percentile in Major League Baseball. It's one of the lowest for starters across the league. But when he's had his issues this year, it's been the walks. But for Sugano, that is now back-to-back starts with 0 walks. And that is what we are looking for. That is what the Orioles are looking for when you bring in a guy like Sugano. You got a couple of double plays, help get him out of some jams. Those are always going to help when your defense helps you out. And he did go pretty heavy on the sweeper usage, but he was throwing it for strikes all day, threw it to righties like he usually does, threw it a lot to lefties as well. That's not as usual, but he really has good command of that pitch sometimes, including Saturday, and could just kind of throw it wherever he wants it. So although generally a sweeper from a righty, not a good pitch against the lefty, Sugano made it work. The only issue was I wasn't really a fan of when the Orioles pulled him out of the game. His final line for Sugano in this one, 6 innings of 1-run ball on 4 hits, 4 Ks, no walks, and a homer, but it only took him 63 pitches to get through 6 innings of 1-run ball. Now, let me caveat my disapproval of this move with this. If the Orioles were in it, if the O's were in a wild card race, a division race, whatever it be right now, and they had a bullpen that was more put together and was pitching the way it has been in September, sans what happened on Friday night, I would have been 100% down with the move that Tony Mansolino made in pulling Sugano out of the game there after 6 innings, right? He gave you 6. He was giving up some hard contact. He was about, facing the order the 3rd time through. You got the Blue Jays, who are known for their comebacks. You're trying to keep yourself in this. You got a 2-1 lead hanging to the bottom of the 7th inning. You've had some relievers who have pitched really, really well lately. If the O's are trying to win games, the move to try and win is get Sugano out, get the better swing and miss relievers in, because Sugano can be beaten by the long ball at any given time. He's giving up hard contact. That would be the right move. But the Orioles are out of it, right? They're 69 and 78 at this point. And they were planning, which they did, on doing some version of a bullpen game on Sunday, since they had to skip Dean Kramer's start. So the next day, you need as many fresh relievers as possible to get through a bullpen game, because it's easy to do a bullpen game the day before an off day. The Orioles, after a bullpen game Sunday, they don't have an off day Monday. In fact, they don't have an off day at all this week. So you got to plan for the future a little more when, again, you are 9 games under 500 and you are out of it. And with Sugano at only 63 pitches, this is a guy that's regularly gone, 90 plus up to 100 pitches this season. I think you let him roll out there. Now, if he goes back out there in the 7th and it starts to get really bad and there's a lot of traffic, then you can pull him for a reliever. But even if he gives up a run and lets the game tie but gets through the 7th inning and he's at 80 pitches, send him back out there for the 8th. He's pitching fairly well, and you got to save your relievers for Sunday. And now, did it matter that much on Sunday? No, because the Orioles got bludgeoned, as we'll get to. But you could argue that it was a development move for those relievers to pitch in those spots. But again, the O's got to be looking at development rather than trying to win games right now. And I feel like they made the more of the winning the game move and kind of hurt their chances elsewhere in the weekend. I don't know. There's arguments for both sides. Let me know in the Locked On Orioles YouTube comments what you would have done with that move. It's weird because I'm saying it not from a winning sense. Like, if the O's are trying to win the game and they're in it, you do pull in there. I don't love the move that they made. But what went wrong? Well, the Orioles bullpen hit a bit of a wall. Talked about it coming into Friday, had a 1.14 bullpen ERA in September. That was by far the best in baseball. Well, then Dietrich Enns and Sean Dubin combined to allow 5 runs on Friday. And then the Oriole bullpen combined to allow 4 more on Saturday. Now, Rico Garcia did not get a good start to his 7th inning. A walk, a single, had a 3-1 count, but got back into it, rolled a double play, got a strikeout, put up a 0 in the 7th, kept the Orioles up 2-1. O's add an insurance run to go up 3-1 in the eighth. Cade Stroud gets another high leverage chance in the eighth inning. He allows 2 hits, comes out of the game. Keegan Aiken comes in, allows one of the inherited runners to score, but does strand the bases loaded and keep it at a 3-2 Orioles lead. Then the O's get another insurance run, and it's 4-2 going into the bottom of the ninth. And this is another situation where it's like the O's are going to Cano and Aiken in these high leverage spots. And it's such a push and pull for what the plan should be for these spots right here, because on the one hand, Cano and Aiken are by far your most accomplished and experienced relief pitchers in this bullpen. I mean, you look at the other 6 relievers the Orioles are employing right now, and it's mostly journeyman guys, rookies, guys who don't have a lot of time pitching in the big leagues. Meanwhile, Aiken's been on this Orioles team since 2020. Cano's been here since 2022, and they've been staples in this bullpen for a while. Now, neither of these guys have really ever been closers for the Orioles until this season. Cano's been a high leverage guy for a while. Aiken's had a little bit of that, but mostly been more of a middle reliever. And there's reasons why Aiken and Cano have not been like up for closer roles for this Orioles team. And not just because the O's have had Felix Bautista for most of that time. It's because of their stuff and how it plays. You just trust them a little bit more, a little bit earlier in the game. Now, one side of thinking would say, yes, we're not trying to win every game. We're out of it. But let's not overwhelm these young rookie relievers and giving them every single ninth inning save chance. Let's let Cano and Aiken handle those because they've been there and done that, at least not in save chances, but they're veterans. They know what to do in the big leagues. And let's still give the Wolframs and the Garcias and the Enzes and the Strouds of the world high leverage spots, but maybe not the ninth inning, because even though numbers don't bear this out a lot, I truly believe that just pitching in the ninth in a save situation is a different beast. And just because you're great in the seventh or eighth does not mean you're going to be good in the ninth. Sometimes ends up being a different mental state for guys to go out there. That's why you see sort of a little bit quirky from closers generally, because you got to be a little bit different to be able to handle the ninth inning. So on one hand, I'm kind of okay with Cano and Aiken getting those spots. On the other hand, the Orioles have admitted, as they should, and as the correct thing to do now that they're out of it, it should be about development, especially here in September. It is about development. And I don't see a scenario, unless there's tons more injuries, where either Keegan Aiken or Yennier Cano are the Orioles closer on opening day in 2026. That's just not going to happen. They're going to add more to the bullpen. I think both those guys will be on the opening day roster, but back in their kind of 6th, 7th inning roles where they fit a lot better on this team when the Orioles add some help in the bullpen. In theory, although I think they're going to sign a closer, you're still looking to see which of these other mass of 6 or 7 relievers, which of these guys are going to stick, which of them are going to take hold of this opportunity. And I think giving those guys chances in the 9th inning, on the flip side of the early argument, is beneficial to see, okay, who can handle this, right? If Garcia or Stroud gets that 9th instead of the 7th or 8th inning, if Wolfram gets it, or really any of these guys kind of gets a shot in that 9th inning, just see what they can do, it probably benefits the Orioles more long-term than just giving it to Cano and Aiken again, who have gotten not all, but most of the save opportunities. The O's have done a little bit, right? Dietrich Enns had a chance. Yarmir Geraldo had a save chance earlier this year. Like, they've given them some, but it's mostly been Cano and Aiken. The Orioles have played the most one-run games of any team in baseball since the All-Star break. So even since, losing 5 of their main relievers, they've been at a lot of these spots, and it's been mostly Cano and Aiken. And some of it's been good from those guys. Some of it, like Saturday, has not been good. And, Aiken allows a runner on with 1 out. Cano comes in the 9th, 4-2 lead, gives up a single, couple of ground ball singles that, ball off the bat, you're like, that's a ground out. Nope, it's into the outfield. Then a catcher's interference, and then a walk-off sac fly by Alejandro Kirk to give the Blue Jays the lead. And Cano has been just so much better since he ditched the old changeup, added the splitter midway through August. Opponents still don't have a hit against that splitter. But the reason why he's never really been the Oriole closer is that he doesn't miss enough bats, and he can fall into spots like we saw in the 9th inning on Saturday. He gets the grounders, but they don't end up in the right place. And that's why you need guys that miss bats, because grounders are great, but swings and misses are better at avoiding giving up runs. And again, he's not going to be in these spots next year, the 9th inning, but he's going to be an important reliever. I don't understand all the Cano hate. He's been so moldable, so coachable, maybe the most coachable player that the Orioles have had in maybe like the Brandon Hyde era or the Mike Elias era. because he's made so many adjustments that have helped him get better when he goes into slumps, and he's going to keep doing that. On the Blue Jay side of this comeback, they look exactly like the 2023 Orioles. It's kind of scary. All the pinch hitting, they use their whole bench, all the platooning, they lead the league in comeback wins. They got a few bullpen questions, but they got some guys out there. They got a few rotation questions, but they got some guys out there. They got a ton of guys having career years. I mean, they legitimately look just like the 2023 Orioles. And as I said, I do kind of hope they suffer the fate of the 2023 Orioles in the playoffs as well. That's why I kind of think they're going out in the ALDS along with the Brewers. Teams built like that generally don't get themselves to the World Series. And the shout out for Saturday, well, the shout out goes to the kids. This is a young team overall, but the kids had a great day on Saturday. Jackson Holliday had another hit and a walk. Samuel Basayo had an RBI double off the wall the other way in the 8th for some insurance. Coby Mayo had 2 hits, including a monster solo home run in the 9th. And Dylan Beavers had 3 walks, a new career high as he was hitting second in the order for the first time. Beavers now up to 20 walks and 22 strikeouts in 23 games entering Sunday. That's now 5 games with multiple walks. He walked a ton in AAA. He just kept it going up here. You love to see it. But unfortunately, the O's couldn't hold on. They give up 3 in the 9th, and they're walked off in a 5-4 loss to the Blue Jays. At the very least, you have a chance to avoid the sweep on Sunday. Didn't happen. Did not happen. This episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by Nutrafol. You've probably seen a million ads for hair growth products and thought, sure, like that one actually works. Well, there's so many products out there, it's hard to know which ones are actually going to do anything. That's why you should give Nutrafol a closer look. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people. It's not just hype. This is a supplement clinically tested that targets the root causes of thinning and shedding with a proactive approach. And Nutrafol, it's such a simple add to your day. 4 pills with a meal, no prescription needed. It's that easy. So see thicker, stronger hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering Locked On MLB listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. So the Orioles were indeed swept this weekend by the Blue Jays because at a point they had a chance to win Friday. They certainly were 2 outs away from winning on Saturday. I never really feel like they had a chance to win on Sunday. Final score from the series finale, Blue Jays 11 and the Orioles 2 as the O's are blown out in the final game in Toronto to drop to 69 and 80 on the season. We'll start with what went right for the Orioles on Sunday. Well, some struggling hitters hit some home runs for the O's. Their only 2 runs came on 2 solo homers. The first was Coby Mayo. A solo shot off Shane Bieber opened the scoring in the 2nd inning, took a high cutter from Bieber, hit it out 412 feet to dead center field, made it back-to-back days with a home run for Mayo, actually back-to-back at-bats because he homered in the 9th inning on Saturday. First time in his career he's gone back-to-back ABs. First time in his career he's gone back-to-back games with a home run. It's still been a struggle this year. I still think there's a bit of a swing change with Orioles and Mayo coming up this offseason. But if he could finish strong, and these 2 homers certainly help, that would be great to see. And then Colton Cowser had the other Orioles run, an opposite field solo homer in the 7th, made it a 5-2 game at the time. 105.3 off the bat the opposite way is pretty impressive, but it's been a rough go for Cowser. Obviously, he missed basically the first 2 months of the season with that broken thumb, diving into first base all the way back in Toronto in March. He came back. He was red hot when he came off the IL at first in June, but since then, July, August, September have just kind of been a disaster. Coming into Sunday's game, Cowser was 4 for 33 with 15 strikeouts in the month of September so far. So nice to see him hit the home run on Sunday. But since the All-Star break entering Sunday, it has been rough. A 183 average, a 38% strikeout rate, and a 62 WRC plus for Cowser. It means he's been 38% worse than a league average hitter. 38% K rate's one of the highest numbers in that stretch since the All-Star break. That is not good. I'll, of course, break down Cowser a lot more on an episode this offseason to see like what needs to change for next year, but definitely good to see him at least hit one over the fence amidst a pretty tough stretch for the Orioles' new center fielder. What went wrong on Sunday? Well, that was the bullpen game. Dean Kramer, luckily, is not going on the injured list, it looks like, but the Orioles did decide to have him skip a start after he left his last start last Friday night with some forearm soreness. His MRI was clean, but the O's said he's going to avoid the IL. He's going to skip a start, then hopefully come back. So Sunday was the day the Orioles decided that that was going to be the open spot from Kramer. And even though the Orioles are using a 6-man rotation, so theoretically, they could have just briefly gone back to the usual 5-man rotation, Tony Mansolino said at the beginning of September, they want everyone pitching on extra rest for the rest of the season. That's why they have a 6-man rotation. That's why you go to a bullpen game on Sunday. Now, it wasn't a typical bullpen game because you do have Albert Suarez. He's not fully built up as a starter, but he was a starter last season. And he was able to give him 3 innings as the starter and bulk pitcher in this game. And he threw the ball well in this one, did Suarez. 3 innings, 1 run, 2 hits, 5 Ks, and a walk on 53 pitches. I mean, he was locating well. 5 strikeouts for Suarez in 3 innings. Only 1 hard hit ball by Jays hitters against him. But again, he didn't throw many more than 53 pitches, even in his rehab starts he had in AAA a couple of weeks ago coming back from the shoulder injury. So, I mean, maybe 4 innings would have been his absolute maximum, but he was never going to go super deep into this game for the Orioles. So they turned to Grant Wolfram, and he was hurt by 2 infield singles, then a ball that kicked off the third base bag, and he gives up 2 runs in the 4th. And then it was what could have been a cool moment. Carson Ragsdale, who was called up by the Orioles on Sunday as Sean Dubin was placed on the 15-day injured list with right elbow discomfort. Now, that's going to end Dubin's season because there's less than 15 days left in the year. And Tony Mansolino did say Dubin's going to go back to Baltimore to get some testing, and there is some concern there. He's had some arm injuries already this season when he was with the Astros, came over to the Orioles on waivers a couple of weeks ago, did not give up a run until Friday night. That was a long, laborious appearance on Friday night. Hopefully not Tommy John for a guy who certainly showed some flashes since he joined the Orioles. But Ragsdale is called up. He was starting in AAA, so he kind of gives you some bulk innings for a bullpen day. And Ragsdale was a solid pickup by the Orioles. He was claimed off waivers from the Giants back on August 3rd. At the time, he was the number 17 overall prospect in the Giants system, according to FanGraphs. 27-year-old righty who hadn't made it to the big leagues yet, but it had some good times and some bad times in AAA. Came over to Baltimore. The O's used him as a reliever for a little bit in AAA, then moved him to the rotation, and he actually pitched well. Overall, 23 and a third innings in Norfolk, a 3.47 ERA. He was throwing the ball pretty well, wasn't walking a lot of guys. And the Orioles, with him being on the 40-man roster, with the roster crunch coming up this offseason, I think certainly wanted to get a look at him. So he comes out in the 5th, and of course he allows a home run to the first batter he faces, George Springer. But then he settles in a little bit, flashes some good stuff to finish off that 5th inning. Does give up another run in the 6th, but you can see, I really like the fastball's got some good life on it, and I really like the curveball. And then he comes back out there in the 7th inning and just goes kind of full disaster mode. He gives up 6 runs in the 7th. His final line is major league debut, although it's a cool moment, probably a stat line to forget, which is 3 innings, 8 runs, 9 hits, 2 Ks, a walk, and a homer on 79 pitches. He's got a 24.00 career ERA. It only gets better from here, Carson, and we'll see what his role will be moving forward. But because he pitched so much and he does have options, he's almost certainly going to be sent back down to AAA on Monday. Chase McDermott was with the team on the taxi squad this weekend. I can almost guarantee we'll see Chase McDermott rejoining the Orioles as a reliever when they get to Chicago on Monday. So that'll be fun because he's been great out of the Tides bullpen since making that conversion. And the shout out for the blowout loss on Sunday, it's got to go to Luis Vasquez, right? Without a doubt, this season, Luis Vasquez is the best position player pitcher in the major leagues. Was throwing more 33-mile-per-hour lollipops in the bottom of the 8th inning of an 11-2 game on Sunday, and it's another 1-2-3 inning for Vasquez. Now, he's still yet to strike a batter out, but that was his 4th appearance as a position player pitcher this season for the Orioles. In those 4 appearances, 4 1/3 innings, 3 hits, no runs, no strikeouts, and 1 walk. He is the only position player in the major leagues this year, sans Shohei Ohtani, of course, who has thrown, well, not even sans Shohei Ohtani for this stat. He's the only position player in the majors this year who has thrown at least 4 innings in big league games and is still yet to allow a run. I think no doubt about it, Luis Vasquez, if you want to remember one tiny cool thing from this season, the Orioles had the best position player pitcher that you could find. That really doesn't make much of a difference, though, when you're down 11-2 and the Orioles lose the game Sunday and are swept in the series by the Blue Jays. This Toronto team gets closer and closer to potentially clinching the AL East. That'll do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Orioles, they don't have a day here on Monday. They actually only got one more off day for the entirety of the season. They are back at it this week in Chicago. One more series against a bad team It's the 57-93 White Sox. Orioles and Sox, a 3-game series on the South Side. It starts tonight at 7:40 p.m. Eastern time. Kyle Bradish will take the hill for start number 4 since returning from TJ. White Sox currently have TBD listed. It seems like they're going to go with an opener, and then the former Maryland Terrapin, Sean Burke, will kind of pitch as the main pitcher and bulk guy, the right-hander for the White Sox in this one tonight. And then I will be back tomorrow. Until then, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the Locked On Orioles YouTube channel. Leave a 5-star rating and a review, like and follow the show wherever you listen. And of course, if you have Orioles thoughts, want to ask some questions, mailbag questions, or I love feedback on the show, positive, negative, whatever it may be, I want to hear it. You can always email me, lockedonorioles@gmail.com. Back tomorrow to recap game 1 between the Orioles and the White Sox and talk about most likely the return to the majors for Chase McDermott. But until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.